everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and today we got a spicy video. Obviously, Scott Frost's seat, shocker, is a little spicy, a little hot right now. And so today, we're going over coaches that Nebraska fans need to keep their eye on if Frost is fired. We're going over 10 guys who seem like they could fit the bill. 10 guys that Nebraska could potentially pursue if that's the case. And obviously, Frost's buyout is cut in half on October 1st. And so if things go really south, there's a world where he's fired mid-season. And Nebraska fans need to have their eye on these guys as potential future coaches of Husker football. Obviously, some are going to be more likely or less likely than others, but we're going to be throwing out a handful of intriguing options, to say the least, moving forward. So we have a lot to talk about. Caleb, how you doing?
Doing well. This is an interesting thing. Obviously, we've been in this place before as Nebraska fans. At some point, the writing kind of becomes a little bit on the wall if things don't change for coaches. And yeah, it's just good to know the other names, other coaches to watch for. I think back when Scott Frost was one of the names of watching, I tuned into some UCF games, see what was happening. As Nebraska fans, we're watching more than just Nebraska games too, as college football fans. And these are just some good names to look at.
Well, we got to start off with, I would say, the elephant in the room, or something that has to be addressed before we talk about some of these coaches. Because the first argument for some of these guys that are like, there's no chance that guy would come here is, do coaches want to come to Nebraska? Would coaches be willing to come to Nebraska? And, some people think there is absolutely no chance Nebraska's an elite job anymore or anything along those lines. But I would obviously, maybe we're biased, but I think both of us would definitely disagree that that's the case. And so we're going to go through some reasons why that might just be. One of the big reasons was obviously expectations were very high. It was the fans are unrealistic. They're firing Bo Pelini for 9 wins. Why would you ever want to go to a place where you're going to get fired for winning 9 games? Let's be honest. We've been humbled the past, 5 or 6 or 7 years at this point.
Yeah.
8 wins sounds pretty dang incredible right now. First one out the door is the fans are ready. They want the guy, and 7, 8, 9 wins is the first step to getting there.
Nebraska fans have definitely shown that there is plenty of patience at this point, but we're still spending money. Nebraska spent $150 million for new facilities that are coming in soon.
I mean, for a new coach to come in their first year, they have a $150 million facility to show off. That's a pretty nice, an asset to have in your back pocket for recruiting.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And again, we want to succeed. We've spent money on assistant coaches. That's been one of the better trends. It started with good old Bob Diaco, who did not turn out well, but we spent up to try and get him. Obviously, he had success at Notre Dame. We spent money to have really good assistant coaches. We spent a ton of money, and that's really attractive to a coach to, bring in guys. Hey, we will spend top dollar to help you succeed.
I mean, that's something coaches want. They want to know that they have the backing of the board to go and get the guys they want to get. And that's, I think, a huge asset, and that's not a guarantee at other colleges, for sure.
Definitely.
I think another thing is that with the transitioning in college football right now, with the conferences and the power of the conferences, at this point, there's 2 power conferences. It's the Power 2. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. And there's right now only 33 Power 2 schools. Only the few of them have the financial support and revenue and budget that Nebraska has. And that's something that could be incredibly intriguing to a coach right off the rip.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we're top 20 in total revenue, which is awesome. And the other thing is Nebraska has always been cutting edge on getting the advantage with student athletes. Whether that was weight training, being the first college team to ever do that, with nutrition, and now with NIL, we have really set ourselves apart, making money, obviously, on the other teams. We're dominating. That's why volleyball is starting to get the crazy recruiting classes. And we're keeping ourselves extremely competitive. I mean, that's why we were able to get Casey Thompson and a lot of these other guys, is because we are spending the money on NIL. We're really focused on being a place where you can do that in Nebraska. We're help build your brand.
Casey Thompson already, after one game, is one of the most famous people in the whole state. That's how crazy it gets. I mean, probably if you polled people, like Adrian Martinez over the past 4 years is maybe one of the top 5 most well-known people in Nebraska, probably.
No doubt.
He's about as famous as you can get in the state for someone. So that really is.
Or infamous.
A thing as well. So exactly, that's fair. And you also mentioned the academic bonuses now, where there's a baseline of $5,000 for academic bonuses.
$6,000 for just passing your classes.
For players on scholarship. It's insane. So that is a huge, nice baseline for coaches to work off of with recruiting. And like, obviously we showed patience with Frost. And I think that was a fear after Mike Riley. For a lot of coaches looking at Nebraska, we're like, well, I mean, I hired Riley after 3 seasons. Are they going to have any patience with me if it doesn't go well? And if I inherit a program that's going to really suck? And obviously we've given Frost now 5 years of no bowl games. So I think a lot of coaches could see that and think, all right, I can make a bowl game and I can buy myself 5 or 6 or 7 years with Nebraska. And like, realistically, I mean, you can't really do much worse. So no, I mean, you're not following a legend. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I think those are just a bunch of reasons for why coaches could see this as a pretty intriguing job. And like I said, I think the stability already in the Power 5 is an underrated asset, considering that you're 100%. In the Big Ten. Or like if you're looking at other teams around the country who are currently in the Pac-12 or the ACC or the Big 12.
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen with those guys? Contracts. Where are you going to end up? I mean, I think those are legit questions you have to be worried about. So it makes a school like Nebraska, with the revenue, top 20 in total revenue in the country, it makes it a pretty intriguing job. So with that said, I think those are all reasons why these coaches could at least consider the Nebraska job and give it a real shot. And some of them are definitely ones that could potentially make sense. So let's kind of start here.
We have Hugh Freeze.
Oh, goodness.
Wow, he is a controversial pass.
The fact that this is actually possible is a little scary.
Yes. Liberty's head coach. He was the Arkansas State offensive coordinator 2010 and 11. Ole Miss's head coach from 2012 to 2016. Oh, yes, the head coach in 2011. Yes. Ole Miss's head coach from 2012 to 2016. Obviously, it's a fantastic recruiting classes. Got a little bit of
including
trouble.
A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf.
Yes. 2 absolute units. Only had 1 decent season at Ole Miss with 10 and 3, which was, kind of disappointing for how good of recruiting class he had. 0 and 7, and then 2016, then fired. But then he's gone to Liberty and
completely U-turned that program.
Yeah, 8 and 5, 10 and 1, and 8 and 5 last year.
And obviously producing talent like Malik Willis. So
yeah,
it's like,
100%.
It is interesting. I think it's an option that I've been seeing thrown around online, and it's at least someone that the university would probably at least consider or throw an eye towards.
Obviously his past is questionable, but he does have some good amount of experience.
Yeah. So I think there's a handful of other guys that were right out around that 9-10 that we could have included. I maybe we can throw in the honorable mentions right now. Like offensive coordinator from Baylor, Jeff Grimes, I think is a potential guy, 53 years old. Georgia's offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, 56 years old. I think even BYU's head coach, Kalani Sitake, could be an option as well. And then maybe, who knows,
Yeah. Guys like Gus Malzahn.
Oh my! Go back to UCF. Well,
yeah, Blake Anderson.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Jason Cannell from Toledo. Some of these younger guys. Rhett Lashley from SMU, and then Jimmy Chadwell from Coastal Carolina is also a pretty interesting one that definitely maybe could have even made the list here.
So at number 8 here, I think it's got to be Notre Dame's offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, who has showed a lot of promise, but he's really young. I think that's where it gets risky. I've seen a lot of hype around him as a potential coaching option this past year or so. And I don't know necessarily if he'd either want to leave right now this early or if Nebraska would be willing to take the risk on him. But he does have a decent resume so far. He played at Notre Dame, the quarterback at Notre Dame from 2010 to 2013, grad assistant at Northwestern, and then the Chargers offensive assistant in 2016, and then a Notre Dame's quarterbacks coach in 2017 to 2019, and then their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach the past few years since 2020. And obviously Notre Dame's had success with him there, produced a lot of talent. The timeline might not work out for him, but I thought he was worth including on this list because he's had a lot of hype online as a potential coaching option around the country.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him taking a jump to maybe a smaller Division I head coaching job or in some other conference. But again, he is a promising prospect as a coach that is definitely worth mentioning on the list.
At least for my humble opinion, I think this top 7 is where it gets pretty interesting for sure, and where I think the most likely candidates could potentially lie here. So at number 7 is Matt Entz, North Dakota State's head coach, obviously 49 years old, and a dominant last 3 seasons as NDSU's head coach, 16-0 in 2019, 7-3 in the COVID year, and then 14-1 in 2021. So they've been dominant, and he was at NDSU as their defensive coordinator, linebackers coach from 2014 to 2018. And then at Western Illinois before that is a little bit riskier than I think a lot of Husker fans would like to take as a guy who hasn't been a head coach or an assistant in the Power 5. But still, I think an interesting hire that would be on the riskier side, but with a high upside.
Yeah, again, anytime that they're obviously producing NFL talent, but with
Right.
Trey Lance and
Like,
something like that,
if we
is
could
very
find a Trey
exciting.
Lance, I'd be down.
Yeah, I'd definitely be in. I think Nebraska would be pretty successful if that were the case. He also does have a little bit of a Nebraska connection too, being at Wayne State. So
Yes.
that's pretty interesting as well. Definitely an interesting hire. And again, like if you're going to roll the dice, a guy from North Dakota State.
Yeah, may as well go high upside.
Yes, exactly. Next is Josh Gattis from Miami, the offensive coordinator. He's 38 years old, and he does have a Big Ten coaching trail here. He was at Penn State for the passing game coordinator and the offensive recruiting coordinator, as well as the wide receiver coach from 2014 to 2017. Also has some Nick Saban connection, Alabama co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach in 2018, and then Michigan offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach as well. And then now, obviously, Miami, he's offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach.
Yep. He's had mixed reviews though, with
Yeah.
how he's played at Michigan, or how he was at Michigan. I know a lot of Michigan fans were iffy on him at least, and they were
Yeah.
willing to let him go to Miami. But I mean, he is young. He's only 38 years old. And so it's a really young guy if you were taking him on as a head coach. But he is one of those guys that I think a lot of teams are going to be considering here moving forward.
Yeah, if Miami has a solid season on the offensive this year, he definitely moves up a lot of big boards. Next is Jim Leonhard from Wisconsin, the defensive coordinator. Yeah, I know. Sad to say, Wisconsin. Yes, he's 39 though.
Purebred Wisconsin.
Yes, played linebacker at Wisconsin. Went undrafted in 2005. Was Wisconsin's DB coach in 2016. The Wisconsin defensive backs, the D coordinator, and now defensive back coach from 2018 to the present. Obviously, they've kind of settled in since 2018 and become a very solid Wisconsin defense. So we're used to seeing something that Nebraska would definitely like to emulate, a solid. And that also gives us a pipeline to some more Big Ten schools, some recruiting there. It could definitely be a very solid choice. We've seen success from other defensive coordinators from Wisconsin, most notably recently Dave Aranda, who was also a DC and now obviously at Baylor. So, and also I think that Big Ten experience is an important thing for Nebraska at this point. We've kind of pulled from some different conferences, and I think having Big Ten experience, knowing how to win in the Big Ten is something that we have been missing. And I think defensive minded definitely can work a little bit better in the Big Ten than offense. In the Big 12 and the Pac-12, it's more of an offensive mindset. But I think in the Big Ten, it really is defense first. The O&M defensive lines, the trenches is really what sets the tone. And I think that could be a really interesting option for Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I think the worry would be is like, well, what if he has success here, and then the Wisconsin job opened up? Would he want to go back to Wisconsin? Would he bail on us for Wisconsin? There's a world where that could actually happen. I think that's where that hire gets at least a little bit risky. So you'd have to have a pretty heart-to-heart conversation here with him. Like, hey, you got to be bought in here for the long term if you're gonna be Nebraska's head coach. So he's interesting for sure, though. I like the resume a lot. For sure. And obviously he's smoked us the past few years, and I agree with his philosophies. So I'm down. All right, here at number 4, this is where it gets, exactly. So this is where it gets a little bit spicier, I think, for the top 4, with some maybe longer shots, but higher upside picks here as our head coaches. I think a lot of Husker fans will be very excited with any of these guys. And at number 4 here is Bill O'Brien. Yes, Bill O'Brien. When you think Bill O'Brien, I think a lot of us will think terrible with Houston in the NFL, just awful. But really, from a coaching perspective, exactly. From a coaching perspective, he had that team ready to win football games. It was just that he was an awful general manager and did not know how to deal with money. Don't let this guy control your pocketbooks. All right, guys. No. But as a coach, he's had a ton of success, and obviously right now he's currently the offensive coordinator for Alabama. And before that, of course, he was the head coach for the Texans, 2014 to 2020. He has that Big Ten experience with Penn State from 2012 to 2013. It wasn't like a hugely successful run. He wasn't dominant by any means. Nonetheless, he has the experience there, with winning seasons at Penn State. And I think he could be a guy that could fit right in with Nebraska. You bring a ton of experience in the NFL and with Alabama now in college football. The fit could make a lot of sense if he wants to be a head coach in college football again. At number 3 here is, I would say, a longer shot, but one that is interesting. I wanted to include, I think both of us wanted to include on this list because who knows? And that's Eric Bieniemy. Obviously, currently Kansas City's the Chiefs offensive coordinator. And in the past was coaching in Colorado and has the experience there. He played at Colorado in the early 90s and was Colorado's offensive coordinator in 2011 and 2012 before heading to the Chiefs. from 2013 to 2017 as a running backs coach, and then offensive coordinator from 2018 to the present. What, interestingly enough, he was offered Colorado's head coaching gig in 2020, but he declined. And, there could be different reasons for that. But, I think it's worth at least ringing him up and saying, yo, hey, what's up?
Yeah, are you interested?
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I think he definitely wants a head coaching job in the NFL. He's definitely interviewed
He's
for some
been
before.
next up for a while.
It's felt like, he's been next up for a while. So I totally get it if he wants to stay in the NFL. But yeah, just giving him a shout out, see what's happening is a great thing. Obviously, super exciting as an offensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs. Won a Super Bowl. Been in a ton of big playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of hire that would get people hyped, I think.
So excited.
And get recruits hyped if Bieniemy came to Nebraska. So I think it's worth reaching out to him and seeing what's up.
Yeah,
and obviously what we didn't really mention before was like when it comes to pay, I mean, Nebraska's going to be looking top 10 type pay, top 15 type pay is in that 7 million range in college football right now.
The numbers just keep moving up.
Yeah, so I mean, like inherently, with inflation nowadays, hey, but like inherently nowadays, you're going to be aiming for that $7+ million a year contract. And that would be quite the pay raise for Eric Bieniemy headed to college football. So maybe that's enough to make him, move the needle a little bit for Bieniemy there.
Yeah, again, it'd be super cool. And another great one that I'd definitely be excited about right now, still employed.
This one
Matt
is interesting.
Rule. Yes, again, another reach. He's 47 years old, coached at Temple from 2013 to 2016, went 2-6 his first season, then 6-6, then 10-4, then 11-3. So he took Baylor from 1-11 in 2017 to 11-3 2 years later in 2019. Was a really big turnaround, and we all know the Baylor turmoil before he got there too. That was a really tough spot that he was put in, and for him to flip that so fast again with the restrictions and everything else that Baylor had, the sanctions on him, for him to be able to turn that around, be willing to go to a tougher program, and again be able to flip the script. And Baylor's been really successful past him as well, as an exciting thing. Right now he is at the Panthers, but they haven't had the best 2 years. They've been 5-11 and 5-12. Baker Mayfield did just get there as the QB, so we'll see what happens this year. But again, it's just a fun name to keep.
I mean, a lot of Panthers fans want him fired, though. So I mean, like the thing is like we'll see what happens if they go like 5 or 6 or 7 wins again this year. There's a high chance he gets fired. So then the question would be, would the timing work out on it or not? Like, if Frost is fired mid-season, then I don't know if the timing is going to work out. When it comes to like the conversations are going to have to start during the year. If Frost is fired till the end of the year, in November, and then maybe by then Matt Rule could already be fired, depending on what's happening with the Panthers. So it just kind of depends on the timing. That's the guy I think we both want to include on this list because he's only 47. He has that college football experience. He's been in the NFL. He wants to come back where he was better in college. And generally that's been a pretty good formula for coaches who were great in college, went to the NFL, then came back and then were great again in college. And I think he has interesting upside in the long term as well. Yeah. I think that's a guy to keep your eye on for sure. The name that everyone has on their list here. I mean, obviously, this is the guy that has been a target for many coaches or many programs in college football, and a guy who's had a lot of success at Iowa State, and that's Matt Campbell. He's only 42 years old right now, and obviously they've had a lot of success at Iowa State in his 10 years with wins against Oklahoma many times, Texas, and they've done well, and he's had them above 500 consistently. And that's not been an MO at Iowa State over the last 2 decades. I think he's done a great job, and a guy who's won in the Midwest. And we've seen him now, jump to Iowa State and succeed. I think he'd be a home run hire for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think this would be an exciting one. Again, it is the Big 12, not as much Big 10 experience, but I think that would be okay. Again, being able to beat ranked teams and seeing him have success is very exciting. The only problem is he does have a buyout. So it'd be with him and Frost. If we did do a buyout, it'd be over $11.5 million, which is quite the chunk of change. While he is only getting paid $4 million a year, so if we did move into that more 7 range for one of these top coaches.
But overall, if that's the guy Nebraska wants, then you should probably go and get that guy. And I think he makes a lot of sense for a guy who's already won in the Midwest with all of those things. I think the logic is there for Matt Campbell, and I think that's probably the home run hire. But a lot of people don't think that there's any world where he would actually take the job. And I think that's the debate. I mean, he came from Toledo. He doesn't inherently have any like reason to love Iowa State more than Nebraska, besides the fact that he's already been there. But, money talks. I think at a program like Nebraska, I think it's possible you could convince Matt Campbell to take the job.
Yeah, definitely. And again, as we talked before, I mean, the Big 12's in turmoil. Like they're still figuring it out.
Especially a program like Iowa State.
They're not going to get as big as TV contracts. And just with everything in that, the stability of the Big Ten is an attractive place, not to mention, again, all the other stuff Josh and I said with new facilities, the amount of money, again, easier to recruit. But there is one guy above Matt Campbell. It's the true dream.
The fever dream.
The fever dream. He checks all the boxes. Big Ten experience, being able to win in college football, being able to send recruits. That is Luke Fickell.
My goodness. He's the fever dream for every college program right now.
Every college football that's not dominating at this point, that probably doesn't have, the Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeneys of the world. It is Luke Fickell. The
odds to pull Luke Fickell are slim, but obviously
I don't know what we'd have to pay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously you want to mention it is because he's the fever dream in the best case scenario that could ever happen. But
if that happened for Nebraska, I mean, you just feel so rock solid that we would do well in college football.
Yeah, his dream is to be an Ohio State head coach. It seems like that, at least. He's from the area. He has all the experience there with Ohio State.
Yeah, been in Ohio his whole life.
Yeah, and that's why he wanted to coach at Cincinnati and like all of those things. So it's hard to say, but I mean, my goodness, the talent speaks for itself. The dominance that they produced, like it's just impressive. They had 9 players drafted last year.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce Gardner, Desmond Ridder, and just so many others. I mean, yeah, they're producing talent at Cincinnati. Obviously, the first at-large team to make the college football playoff. Obviously, that's something that Nebraska really wants to go to. That every team wants to go to is the college football playoff to win a national championship. And if he's giving, an at-large team a chance, a non-Power 5 school a chance to win a national championship.
Imagine what he'd do at a Power 5 school.
A 5 school, exactly. Imagine what he could do at Nebraska with more money, more facilities, and again, just bringing that winning talent and culture. That's truly the dream.
As realistic or unrealistic as it might be. Exactly. So obviously we want to see what you guys think down below. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Nebraska ends up going if that ever were to happen with Frost gone, and what that pay would look like for a guy, like a Matt Campbell or, Matt Rule or Bill O'Brien or, any of those guys. Like how much we have to pay for a guy like that would probably be in the $7+ million range. And whether or not Nebraska be willing to pull that trigger and drop the cash like that. I mean, I think they would, but it's going to be interesting to say the least. So drop your comments down below. We want to see what your guys' thoughts are.
Who do you want?
If Frost is gone, who do you want? And your thoughts down below, and the best case scenario, the worst case scenario, and the most likely scenario down below. We appreciate you guys for watching. But as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports, and guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.